You're listening to the She Lift Project podcast, a show dedicated to helping women achieve higher levels of success in the workplace. No matter where you are in your career, we want to help you grow. Now here's your host, Cynthia Kirkpatrick, a CPA, CFP, and Senior Financial Advisor at Moneta Group.
Welcome to another episode of the She Lift Project podcast. I'm Cynthia Kirkpatrick. Thanks for joining us today. And I'm excited. I feel like we're going to have a dynamic, touch upon many different topics conversation today. So I have Whitney Toates with us, and she's not a St. Louis native. So I think some of that may play out. And she came to St. Louis years ago and started building a business club here. And so we'll get to learn how she started that in a new city with a diverse family, having some bonus kids and your own kids. So young one, bonus kids, moving cities, starting businesses, marketing, sales, background, all that through the global pandemic, and building success here in St. Louis. So thanks for coming today.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for having me.
And I'm sure, I always try to say a little bit, but I know that the person themselves can fill in or say it more eloquently than that. So if there's anything I missed, I mean, I see here 15 years sales and marketing experience, challenges and your whole journey. Anything I missed in just your intro or background that you want to share now?
Yeah, I think that you really hit the nail on the head with everything that I had prepared you with. So just excited to be here and excited to talk a little bit about my journey as owning a business, but also being a woman woman business owner and, a female who also has a family. I think it's really important to share that story.
It's something that not everybody, but so many of us go through. And I think we struggle internally when part of the reason for this podcast is if we could share those struggles and learn from each other, we could be more creative and get beyond it faster. Mm-hmm. So I'm sure there will certainly be some great things that pop out today as a result of that piece. But trying to figure out where we start because there's so many angles. Mm-hmm. But let's just even start with what is a business club?
Yeah. So I'll tell you a little bit about the ACA Business Club. So the ACA stands for American Club Association. It is a private business club dedicated to working with business owners, executives, entrepreneurs, and professionals. And the ACA strives on 3 pillars. So the 3 pillars are relationships, professional development, and marketing strategies. Many times we get classified in that networking group kind of category, but there's actually a misconception when it comes to private business clubs. So the private business clubs, we're more focused on the business development and marketing strategies, working with those professionals, helping them get a baseline, helping them get a foundation, and help them grow in their business. And we do that instead of saying networking just to make connections, it's those meaningful connections, those true relationships that we have. The other thing about a private business club, it is invitation only. So there may be, you may not have heard of the ACA Business Club, and it's simply because we don't advertise or market our organization. You have to know somebody to be invited in. And then we offer an opportunity for guests to come a couple of times before deciding if it's a good fit for them and their business plan. Inside of the ACA Business Club, we are a physical clubhouse. So that's one thing to note is we don't meet just anywhere. We do have a physical location. Our first location here in St. Louis is in Chesterfield. We are located right there off of Wild Horse Creek Road, where Long Road and Kerrs Mill all intersect, kind of near the valley. We're behind a gas station and a bank over there. And it's really neat because members do have the opportunity to utilize the club really 24/7 for their business needs.
Do you think that is beneficial or sets you apart or is more helpful where they have one place to go versus different locations, et cetera?
Absolutely. I think it's a marketing tactic. So with my marketing background, I share an opportunity for folks to learn how to leverage the club to not only get work done if they want to come and get work done, but market their business by saying, hey, I'm part of a private business club and I could meet you here. We could have a cup of coffee. They can host. So instead of taking their client to a busy local coffee shop, they have an opportunity to really, really stand out for them at their business and for their clients, their prospects, their referral partners.
So it's more intimate, professional, maybe more, business-like versus, and there's nothing wrong with it. I've done plenty of coffees.
Absolutely.
In any location, lunches, etc.
Right.
But a little bit different twist. Gives you a little bit different look.
Absolutely.
If you need it.
The other opportunity there is then other members are, utilizing the space as well. So on occasion, you'll have somebody walk in and you'll go, oh my goodness, you need to meet this person too. So you get an opportunity to really know the people. So again, that relationship piece, that's really big about our members within our community. Because when you get to know somebody, they become a resource for you, right? Somebody you can refer or be referred to, you can refer to them. So
is the one in St. Louis, is it part of a bigger organization?
Yes.
Sounds like
it is. So the ACA Business Club started in Kansas City. So if you've heard of, we have a couple of athletic clubs. I don't know if I should say. So you've heard of the Missouri Athletic Club here.
Right.
And so we were actually originally a part of the Kansas City Club. And Kansas City Club had a group of folks who ran the ACA Business Club, which was originally the Golf, Tennis, and Country Clubs of America. So after 130 years, the Kansas City Club actually shut its doors. Now, it still exists in form, but it's not a club any longer. It's more of an event space. So right now, you'll see weddings or different things happening at the venue. I have heard, though, they're looking to reopen the Kansas City Club, and they have asked the president and founder of the organization to maybe consider coming back and having an ACA Business Club there. So what ended up happening was a gentleman named Martin Hess and a few folks that he had been a part of the organization. They decided they wanted to keep the mission and vision alive of how people were building relationships, but really leaning in on the business aspect, but making it more obtainable for folks. So instead of it being in a downtown area, they wanted to bring it into more of the areas where people are living, that they're in their communities, maybe they're doing business, so on and so forth. And then you think about how people do business. Well, it's okay to still go to brunch or have a martini lunch, that's what they used to do or what they used to call it. But really, people are having conversations over a cup of coffee, so that idea spun into the coffee shop style event space, which is our clubhouse now. So.
And when did thinking about the St. Louis location, when did it open and what has been your evolution as where you're at today and as part of the St. Louis ACA? Yeah.
Okay. Well, we have to kind of start back at the beginning. So here I am. I live I'm living in, the Kansas side. Overland Park, Kansas is where I'd been working. And I was an employee and I was in sales. I had actually been in software sales, something totally different than I'm doing today. I was actually in freight management. And I wasn't actually looking for a new career opportunity, but an opportunity to go to an event called, it was like, come for a beer, stay for a career. It was Yellow Pages. And who knew?
For those, not everybody knows what a Yellow Page is, so I love this part of the story. You can Google it and find that along with like a rotary phone or something.
Right. Yeah, the old phone book that we used to sit on as kids, right? So the phone book, they were hiring, but they were hiring for a new type of position that they had not done before, which was digital marketing. So it was a whole new area of focus. And
so what year is this? Because digital marketing seems like it's thrown around all the time, right?
Right.
But for those who have been in the business part of the world, not in school or whatever, it is relatively newer. So around what time, like how new, especially if you think about the Yellow Pages or the phone book going digital, like around what year is this?
Yeah, so this was in 2014. Okay. And this event happened to be December in 2014. And the reason this makes this is a kind of a pivotal experience for me, is because what I didn't know at the time is that I would be meeting the love of my life by going to this event. So, and at the time I didn't know he was the love of my life. So I go into this event and they're hiring, and I meet, several of the managers. I meet several of the folks who were there, mingling, networking, if you will. And I got the opportunity to come in for an interview. So the long story long, of course, because I'm telling the story, is that I end up getting hired and I start my career in digital marketing. Well, this was my first opportunity in outside sales. So that's the first thing to note, because I'd always been inside sales. So again, I had said this off the recording,
off camera, right?
But I'm more of a behind the scenes person, right? So being in front of the camera has never been my thing. And when I was in software sales, I was definitely behind a computer. And back then, Zoom was not a thing, right? We weren't on camera, although you would do Zooms to do presentations, but nobody saw your face. So coming into this new realm, which was outside sales, we did have the opportunity to do what are called ride-alongs and mentorship with our leaders. And one of our leaders being the manager who hired me, his name, Philip Toates. We ended up kind of having a spark, I guess you could say. So that story turned into us learning that there was some interest there. And I always like to tease because, people are like, oh, it's scandalous. You married your boss, And I was like, actually, no, you can't really get higher in sales by dating your boss. It actually works the opposite, right? It's kind of like, that's probably not advised. But it was totally fine. We were in a culture where we had, actually a married couple in the office. We had family members who worked there. It was a very family-oriented environment. And so it was...
we laugh, but that really is something that it could derail both careers. And historically, not always, but historically, it's been more of the female's career that would be potentially harmed than not. So it sounds like the culture was a little bit more, less strict and stringent.
No, there were some challenges with that for sure. So I have to say, he was my manager. So there was a moment where they said, yeah, well, you have to report to HR and now you're going to go to somebody else's team. So there were some challenges there, but ultimately it really worked out. And he likes to say, because the boss had said, this isn't going to work out. We don't advise, dating in the office. And he married me just to prove him wrong. But I don't know. I don't think that's true.
So wait, question, how long have you been married?
Yeah, 7 years.
So 7 years, that's a good track record.
7 years in April. Yeah, we ended up dating for a while. And that's how that started. But the reason this is so pivotal is because, many may not know this, but Yellow Pages closed. Yeah, it does not exist in the same form that it did. And so I was actually faced with a layoff, and both Philip and myself were without jobs. He found himself going into a whole nother industry, and I found myself staying in the digital marketing space, ended up going to work for a boutique style agency in Overland Park. But with his new role, which is in security, doing cameras, door access, that sort of thing, he ended up finding an opportunity. So, we dated, then we got married. So fast forward to then now we're married in Overland Park, and he comes to me and says, hey, there's an opportunity for us to maybe move if, for a job. And he's like, would you ever consider moving? And I thought about it. I'm like, well, I've only ever lived I grew up in Olathe, Kansas, and then Overland Park, and I only ever lived here. So I don't know. I guess I'd be open to an opportunity. I honestly don't think he expected me to even say that I would be open to that. So sure enough, we decided to move our lives from Overland Park to St. Louis. We actually live in Eureka, so a little outside of the, city. And that's how I ended up here in St. Louis.
And so you have to leave your digital marketing small boutique firm in Kansas.
Well, actually, because the nature of the business, I was in enterprise sales at this time. So most of my clients were all over the country. And you think about how digital marketing works, it's all through the internet. So it did work out. And at this time in my career, Zoom was more and more popular. Now, we still weren't on video, which I think is very interesting because of how, that evolved over time. But I would travel. So there were many times I was in South Carolina a couple times a year. I'd go out to Colorado Springs and Colorado, and Vegas for trade shows and some things like that. So my role there was more client relations and business development, but I also had the opportunity to be on the analytics side of the digital marketing, so making sure their campaigns were performing well and giving them strategy advice on how to improve their campaigns and what would work. So the opportunity, because I was able to travel and I was able to do things virtually, lended itself into me being able to work from home, essentially, not have to go into the office. And I did work from home for a period of time with the agency here.
What are some interesting, you mentioned, is their campaign working well? Were there any campaigns that were a little out of the norm or something that you weren't expecting to work well that did, or vice versa? What were some fun ones?
Well, I can tell you the industries that I worked in were kind of interesting. So I ended up focusing primarily on mobile accessories, so car accessories. So think your window tint, your subwoofers, your amps. I mean, you think anything related to your vehicle. This kind of tells my age, but it was really popular at the time was Pimp My Ride. Yes. I felt like that was the type of clientele I was working, not to that extreme. But that was the type of campaigns I was running, and I was doing that for retail. So we did a lot of really big pushes for holiday promotional type campaigns. So we had a lot of fun because we would do some fun campaigns where it was like, some people wanted to do stereos in their boats. We wanted to do, oh goodness. Well, I'm trying to think on the spot,
right. Of
something.
Later, but
it will
if somebody wants a spoiler or flames on the side of their vehicle with tinted windows, you would know how to point them in the
right direction, right? But then on the flip side, which is really interesting, is then I did high-end jewelry clients. So high-end jewelry clients, and very interesting, the type of marketing that you would do for these very different industries were actually very similar. However, just a different clientele. Not always different, but yeah, sometimes.
What was surprisingly similar? What?
Well, being in retail and how you market, meaning the types of campaigns that you would run, whether that's paid advertising on Google, maybe you're running, digital commercials or radio. Both industries did a lot in radio as well, digital radio, social media campaigns. So,
any fun campaigns that stand out to you, if you can share?
Yeah, I had a lot of fun doing these. Actually, okay, I have a story that's really funny. It has nothing to do with the actual marketing side, but I'll tell you something that happened to me. So I did have an opportunity to go out and meet some of my clients in Colorado. And there was, it was one of their get-togethers or their big conferences. And so they had one of their fun nights. It was at a local brewery. Well, they were doing sumo wrestling. I mean, the big giant,
you put a suit on?
Yeah. So the executive director of this organization says, I'm going to fight Whitney Toates. And I'm like, what? I'm just the marketing person, behind the scenes, y'all know me. I'm running your campaigns. You're not putting me in a suit. And sure enough, I did it just because I knew that for me, it was getting out of my comfort zone. It was a way to get in front of people, a way to showcase who hey, I'm not afraid to try something different. And sure enough, I got into the ring, I got the big old sumo suit on, and I duked it out with the executive director of the organization, who, anyway, I thought that was a pretty fun, story.
But it is funny because it's funny, but it's also good advice. In that one, as we were setting up, we're like, can our feet touch the floor in these chairs? So it's not like you are, an overly tall person
My
that
feet do not touch the floor right now.
that you would say, sumo wrestling, sign me up. Yes, physically, that I'm in alignment with that. So, if anything, you probably, and to go against the executive director, everything should have been telling you, no, don't do this. Nothing good can come from this.
No.
Yet, as you pointed out, and I think it's a good life lesson and business lesson, is get outside of your comfort zone, try new things, and really try to show in an interesting way. Doesn't have to be sumo suits for everybody, that you're willing to, get a little ridiculous, get a little crazy, put yourself out there for others. And so while it's funny off the cuff, I think it really is a lot of good business and career advice.
Mm-hmm. I'm glad you actually asked me about something that came to memory, because now I'm going to have to pull it out of the, get dusted off and find the old video and try to promote it again.
That would be great. Look what we could do for you.
Yeah, exactly. It was a fun time.
People love stories, so that was great.
So, so the opportunity with the agency was nice because I was able to keep that career going, which gave me my background. So my sales and marketing background is where, this all comes into play. So when Philip and I moved here to St. Louis, at this time I was trying to figure out how to now maybe tap into a market that I hadn't tapped into. So here I am trying to be boots on the street, if you will, trying to create new relationships, find opportunity to have marketing clients here in St. Louis. And when you are new to a new city, it can sometimes be challenging to really find ways to meet people. So I joined some networking organizations, joined some chambers, really tried to work on building that. But I was really feeling a little lost still and not getting my feet on the ground in the way that I felt when I was in Kansas City.
Well, St. Louis can be born and raised here, had an internship outside the city for a summer, but from what I've heard from others coming in, it is, I think, a very warm city, yet you just kind of have to get in somewhere. And then it's like, oh, well, we'll connect you with so-and-so and so-and-so. But it's this tight-knit community where we all know where we went to high school, or at least we asked that question to try to put some connection with that person. Oh, I know somebody who went to that school, or I know what area you grew up in. I know what your background is. So anyway, I think some of the things you're going to continue to share are going to be helpful for others out there, whether it's you're coming into St. Louis, or what do you do when you go to a new city? And for you, Philip was starting with a company, so he had natural connections and people to meet, whereas your company wasn't here. You were traveling. You didn't know anybody. I mean, how do you, when you're building your career successfully, how do you break in well in a new place?
So funny you brought up the high school thing, because that was an odd question for me, because I didn't know that's what the question was. Oh, what school did you go to? The University of Central Missouri. I'm like answering with my, the university I went to. And I'm like, have you heard of it? It's in a little town called Warrensburg, like right outside of Kansas City. And they're like, no. What high school did you go to? Olathe Northwest. Do you know of it? I'm like, why are you asking me? And then I thought, oh my gosh, do they want my mascot so they can hack into my passwords? Like, I'm going, I don't understand this. What is this all about? So I simply realized quickly that it was, hey, they just want to know like where you're from as it relates to St. Louis. And I said, I'm not from here. And I just went with it. And I just started just owning it, like, oh no, I'm not from here. Where are you from? Or I'm from Kansas City, are you from St. Louis? And I just made it into a conversation. And soon people then were intrigued to say, oh, well, tell me more. What brought you to St. Louis? And then I said, well, actually my husband's career brought us to St. Louis. Okay. Then they'd start talking about what they do, so then it was just a warm conversation at that point. And that was super helpful, was just not being afraid to say, you know what, I'm not from here. And leaning into that.
To finding, whether you find something that's similar that you can relate to, or finding something different, and not being worried about making up a high school that you went to, or just picking one here, but really leaning into it. Then, as you said, then go deeper and try to build those deeper
Yes.
relationships.
Yes.
And, anything else from that, breaking into a new city, networking, that helped you, or looking back, like, wow, that was really pivotal in building my presence here in my career?
Yeah. So I realized, though, that even though I was in networking and I was joining all these organizations, I still wasn't feeling quite like I was in the right place. So I had a feeling that I needed to build my own community. I don't know. I'm actually a woman of faith, and I had been praying a lot about what God had for me here in St. Louis. I just wasn't certain. And I was feeling like there was going to be more for me, like I had a bigger purpose. And as I was praying about this, it occurred to me that I should call Martin Hess, the president and founder of the ACA Business Club. And I said to him, Martin, I really miss you guys. I miss the ACA Business Club. So I had been a member of the ACA Business Club starting in 2015, went back when I was working at Yellow Pages. And that's when I met Martin. And, they really taught me a different, and I would say a better way to grow business, to start with relationships. Because as cheesy as it sounds, people do business with who they know, like, and trust. But it's so true. So if you truly get to know somebody and you truly want to help somebody, it just comes back to you. And they taught me how to do that. And the other thing I can say about that is, once I learned this new way of doing business, I also learned that it wasn't necessarily the same as what corporate would have you do. Right? So what I've learned in the working for companies was that, well, if you throw enough stuff on the wall, something's bound to stick. Or have you heard the term smile and dial? So for me, it wasn't about the number of people you could connect with. It was about the right people that you could connect with, build true relationships with. And because I had learned that, I took that into my role here as a new, professional, didn't own the ACA Business Club yet, but as a professional here. And so when I talked to Martin and I said, man, there isn't any organization like the ACA Business Club in St. Louis. It would be so awesome if you could bring one here. And he's like, about 10 years ago, we thought about it, and, we just didn't have that right person in the market. And then we decided to just really focus our efforts in Kansas City. And I said, well, would you consider bringing another one, trying again? Come to St. Louis. He's like, no, I'm not going to. It's like, oh, man. He's like, but you should. I was like, me? What? He's like, yeah, you would be a great person to start an ACA Business Club in St. Louis. It would be an awesome expansion opportunity for the organization. And before I could think, I just said, okay, I'm in. And then I thought, oh, I should probably have talked to my husband about this first before committing to buying into a business opportunity. So I then talked to my husband and I said, hey, this is something I really think God's calling me to do, is to grow this organization and help with the expansion project here in St. Louis. He's like, okay, why don't you do that? So I did have that opportunity to start that on the side while I was still working for the digital marketing agency. So once I had decided to go ahead and launch this, I started to really think, how can I get this started? But not knowing the area here in St. Louis, I'm living in Eureka, a town of like 10,000 people, which, by the way, if you've heard of Overland Park, Kansas, it's a city of 180,000 people. There's like a Starbucks and a Target on every corner. So going from a town like that, and then my husband saying, hey, we're moving to this small town, I honestly didn't understand the concept of going to town. Oh, I know what that means now. But because I didn't know, the landscape, I recognized a commercial a corporate restaurant on the corner of 141 and 44 Highway called Bob Evans. Yeah. And I just decided I'm just going to start a breakfast group. I'm just going to sit there and I'm going to just start meeting people and inviting them to come have breakfast with me.
So you moved to Eureka how long from moving here into the St. Louis area to just starting this breakfast club? What was the time difference?
Yeah, so let's see. Philip and I were married in 2017. We moved here in 2018. At this point, it's 2019.
So about a year-ish.
Yeah, about a year-ish. Maybe it was a little bit sooner than that.
So jumping in a big city with small towns connected,
yes,
not knowing anybody and saying, I'm going to start inviting and bringing people together. How did that process go?
At first, it was pretty easy. But then when I started to share my vision, there was a lot of folks who said, don't do it. A lot of people would say, oh, you can't bring a new business into St. Louis. There's already tons of organizations here. Or, oh, that's not going to work. And I thought, if I listened to that advice, then I wouldn't be where I am at today. And I said, look, the ACA Business Club is coming to St. Louis, whether I'm on board or not. I think I'm going to jump on this train. And, this train's going to be moving fast. So if you want to be on it with me, I'd be glad to have you. And that was the approach that I took. I said, you need to be a part of this. And if not, no big deal.
What some people would say, okay, I'm from out of town. They know better than me. I should listen to them. You're right. Fold it up. Done. Mm-hmm. What helped you say no?
It was God. He kept telling me over and over, you have a bigger purpose in life. You need to be doing this. You need to be making these connections and helping people on a different level, helping people with their businesses. It's a way for me to give back to this, business community, because I will tell you in business, and what I've learned is it can be pretty lonely doing this. You have folks that you might work with, a community within your organization, but they're not the same people that you're going to necessarily tell all your problems or challenges to. And they're not the people that you sometimes want to ask advice for fear that maybe you might seem less than, or maybe you're not able to do the job. And I think that's a real big fear, especially for females, I find. And making sure that we don't appear you don't want to appear a certain way, but you want to come across very confident and very knowledgeable in the space that you're in. So I wanted it to be a safe place for people. And I knew that was the mission that's been placed on my heart. And it's grown ever since.
It sounds like it also comes back to, it was aligned with who you are at your core. Mm-hmm. To be able to focus and put the energy in that no matter what, I know this is right for me. I know this feels right. And I don't want to put words in your mouth, so you can come back and say, nope, Cynthia, everything you just said was wrong. and I think part of it's through my own journey of learning to listen, figure out who I am and align with the values that are, ticking in my heart and soul every moment. That if it wasn't necessarily out of alignment, you've got these naysayers who probably aren't meaning to be negative, but are worried or watching out for you, that if it wasn't truly aligned with who you are internally, you probably wouldn't have powered through.
Right, absolutely.
Or kept the energy going to turn it into what it is today.
Well, yeah, there was a period of time in my life where I didn't know that being a brick and mortar business owner was even in my future or a possibility. So, you go through life, and sometimes, and it's amazing when you can be satisfied where you're at, and it's amazing when you can enjoy that space that you're in. Living in the moment is wonderful. And I thought I was content and happy being an employee. I really did think, that would always be part of my path. But there was also another side to me, because in addition to also being an employee, I also had that entrepreneurial spirit, though. I always did. My background is actually in photography. So when I meant I'm truly behind the camera or behind scenes person, I went to school for photography and business. So I really knew that I would own my own business, and I did. I had my photography business, but I knew I needed more sales experience and kind of knew there was something bigger I was going to be doing in my life, and that's what had me go into the sales world. And then I learned I really enjoyed marketing, and then I learned I want to teach people about sales and marketing, and then I learned, you just, everything that happens in your life, you take another step forward, you take another step up that ladder. You realize there's more potential there for yourself, and what seemed impossible now is super obtainable. Who knew that someone would see something in me to say, no, you should open an ACA Business Club? Who, me? Small potatoes Whitney over here? Like, what? I don't know. But it's really, it's pretty humbling too, to see, look back at that journey and realize, wow, you've got a lot of people in your corner who support you and who believe in you. And you're going to come across folks who are going to be the naysayers. You're going to come across folks who are going to maybe have doubts, but it's not because they, like you said, they doubt you. There's always a fear in opening a business anyway. There's always a fear for people, and they just don't want to see somebody fail. They're really probably doing it more out of the kindness of their heart to say, maybe you shouldn't do that. But it's not because they truly think you couldn't. They just don't want to see something bad happen.
It's protectionism. You're a mom.
Yeah.
I'm a mom. It's letting the kids start running down the sidewalk when they're not totally stable and walking, and in certain situations you won't, but in certain situations you need to let them go so that if they scab a knee, they pick themselves up, they learn that they're okay. So
that's right.
Taking that mom, I don't know if I ever take the mom hat off, but leaning into that. It's so much so that way. But a lot of what you share there to me is just so important in business. I mean, when you were doing your photography business, any way that you think one day I'm going to be starting a private business club?
No.
And probably you couldn't make that leap, I would expect, without the variations and winding through the different things that you mentioned, marketing, sales, learning in those different areas to then put it all together to be able to provide more help, better, deeper help to business owners. Yeah,
absolutely.
And when you mentioned that people feel alone and they want they want a safe place to be able to share their fears or their worries or admit, I feel like I don't know everything in this space. I mean, is that primarily small business owners? Is it high-level execs? Is it everyone?
Yeah. I mean, I find that it starts with the solopreneur, the person who has a vision, who wants to start a business and they're just not sure where to go, to the folks who have a business where they've got multiple employees and they're just looking to figure out the next move in scaling their business. That fear, the fear or the challenges, they exist in every level of business. They just get different as you grow. So there is a space for those, for anybody in business. And, the thing that I love about the ACA Business Club is that we provide that community and that space for business professionals and owners. And we do that through, some different areas. One of the major ones we have is what's called business development teams. So we offer business development teams where business owners can come together and share their challenges and say, you know what? I'm trying to hire, but I just don't know what that looks from maybe I'm looking to have a contract employee or an employee. Maybe I, need part-time work, but need some advice on where to even get started or how to think. Well, great. You're sitting across from an HR professional. They'll give you all the advice or whatever that looks like. It could be maybe a sales objective that you're having that day, or maybe you're having a challenge with an employee. Maybe you're looking to buy or lease an office space. There's so many things that I could think of that come into play with owning a business. It could be taxes. It could be overhead. I mean, finances. And it's tough to have that community to be able to share that with, but if you don't have it, it's a lonely space to be in. So having those people around the table to share that with and get ideas and really feel like you're not alone is so key. And I just hope that business owners know that there is space for that. But not just talking about challenges, we also want to celebrate the wins, because if you've got this like opportunity, you got your next client, or you did something in your business, well, share that. We want you to come and share that with us so we can celebrate with you. And that's what's really important about these groups, that we bring people together so they have that safe space to do that.
It's kind of a great segue into what I was going to ask next is, who are the types of members, whether they're types of industries, businesses, size of companies, the people inside those companies, like who becomes a member with the ACA?
Sure. So to keep it simple, I primarily focus on business owners who have a brick and mortar of 3 or more employees. Now I stay specific because if I target that, so knowing your ideal client, knowing how to target your ideal client, you will find other folks who could also benefit from the organization as well, who may not fit that exact model, but that's who we're looking for. And we have folks who are anywhere from a solopreneur to a brick and mortar company with several employees. Okay. And they come from different industries. We've got HR professionals, IT professionals, fractional CFOs, digital marketing specialists. We have attorneys, many different types of attorneys. We've got a lot of business services, whether that's accounting, bookkeeping. We have a business attorney, mentioned attorneys already. We also have the other sector, which is like home resources. So think your realtor, we've got a concierge handyman service. We've got mold, water damage remediation. We have, oh gosh, I just couldn't name them all. We have so many different areas that we can focus on. Health and wellness space. We've got concierge chiropractors and physical therapists. We have folks who organize spaces, which one of them. So,
and if you're a mom and you work and you have lots of kids and I guarantee you have a space, or at least please say you do, so it makes me feel better that you have a space that needs to be organized.
And really, we are looking for the people who are open to learning, open for feedback, and open for scaling. So when I'm helping these folks, when we as an organization are helping these folks, we're really diving in on the foundation of your business. Do you have all the proper legal stuff in place? Do you have the proper software in place for tracking and measuring? Do you have accounting stuff set up? Do you have all your taxes and all of your resources that you need to make sure that the business is at a base level operational, so you're not having to stress or worry? Because getting new business is great, but the thing that keeps us up at night are all the other little things that go into play that may not be quite where it needs to be just yet. So we're there to help.
Well, I'm sure you went into business because you love that line of business and you're really good at it. So you can't be everything. You can't be good at whatever your business is, plus be an accountant, plus be an attorney, plus be all of those things. So to then build a team where you can tap that expertise, I'm sure is hugely helpful for the members.
Absolutely. And selfishly, I bring all of the resources I need into my organization. So I am so proud of myself because this year I have hired a fractional CFO. I have a bookkeeper. I have a financial advisor. My commercial realtor is in my group because I also have purchased commercial property. And all of my insurance, every single piece of my business, those folks are members of the ACA Business Club. I have those resources, and I can share those resources with other business owners.
When I personally just think, wow, concierge, handyman, and concierge, like I just want to be a client of the whole group. So
yeah,
many,
absolutely.
but any stories you can share of, something that stands out to where the group was able to come together and really transform somebody's business or life or success?
Yeah, I have actually a pretty personal story that I could definitely share. Probably one of the biggest milestones in my life. And that goes back to the birth of my daughter. So here I am. I had just come out of opening a new business in 2009, well, the September 2019.
Which we all know what happened.
Shortly after that. Mm-hmm. So I made it through a global pandemic. So I thought for sure nothing else could be that challenging with this business. But after I realized the place where we were leasing for our space was up for renewal for our contract to re-up our lease. And I decided that I didn't want to stay there in that space any longer. We needed a different space. I could just feel it. It needed to be something else. So I partnered up with one of our commercial realtors who had started the process of helping me find a new space to lease for the ACA. Well, couldn't find a space. I had been looking and looking. So we were, in a way, a little bit homeless for a period of time when it came to where our members were supposed to be meeting. And we're a clubhouse, a physical location. So this was not ideal. So we ended up meeting at a fitness club and having that temporary. So in the meanwhile, all of this is happening during, the global pandemic, and then getting on the other side of that, looking for a new space. During this period of time prior to this, my husband and I had been trying for children. So with when you introduced me, you learned I actually, when I married him, I gained 3 bonus kids. So 3 boys, which by the way, the twins are about to be 26, and the youngest boy is 18, and now one of them is married. And no, I am not old enough to have 26-year-old children or really an 18-year-old, but this is life. And I married into and getting my children, and I'm so blessed to have them in our life. Now they live in California, so they're not close, but they are. But we're a close knit family, so we all are very, very connected in that way. But I wanted my own children, and unfortunately, it was a bit challenging for us. Philip and I struggled with infertility issues and trying to conceive or stay pregnant. So with that, we had just started the process of getting some help. We started doing the tests to potentially do some fertility treatment. But the blessing of God gave us the awesome positive pregnancy test, and I found out actually December 1st, it was his birthday, and it was Philip's birthday. It was a great birthday surprise for him when I found out we were expecting, and so here I am, now pregnant. Okay, now I'm trying to find a location for my business, and I have to say, pregnancy brain is a real thing. And all of the other challenges and changes that our bodies go through as females when you are pregnant, that lends itself its own set of hurdles when you're trying to run a business. I am on my feet all day. It's an event-based business. We're doing meetings, business development teams. We're hosting events, you name it. And here I am, right? Nice and pregnant. And in the midst of trying to find a new location. So I do end up finding a location for the business. And what I loved about this opportunity was when you're trying to lease a space, you find, okay, leases can be quite expensive. And you don't have ownership or really any of the decision making when it comes to what you can do at that property. Somebody else gets to have the final say. So my realtor then approached me and said, hey, have you ever thought about owning? Like, how could I ever own commercial property? Like, I just don't even know anything about that.
Strap the sumo wrestling outfit on and jump right in.
That's right. And I did. I decided I would go ahead and try it out. But there was a lot that I learned about where I had been in business, what I didn't know that I didn't do in business to set myself up for an easy opportunity to get a loan and to actually purchase this space. So it turned out that I may have previously worked with an accountant who didn't quite add all of the right financials together in a way that made it look like I was profitable enough to be owning a property, right? So there was that. I realized, hey, I'm not sure what happened here, but you're going to have to amend your taxes. Oh, what? I've never had to amend taxes in my life. So I have to get with an accountant. I have to start this process of digging into my old, 2 years, 3 years prior tax information to get these things, redone. And then, going to a bank to say, hey, I've never owned commercial property before. Oh, and by the way, I've never had a big business like this. So I have no business credit. I have nothing to show on paper of the profitability of a company that's only been around for now about 2 years.
And at this point, are you pregnant?
At this point, I'm pregnant.
Visibly pregnant.
Visibly pregnant.
I just have this feeling that they're also like, not sure.
Sure this is going to work out. You're going to go buy this space and then off you go into motherhood. So here I am, trying to find this loan, get a loan for this space. And I got turned down 4 times. 4 banks told me no. But guess what? In my nature, I just don't give up. And God said, you keep trying, you keep going. There's nothing that you cannot do. So I said, okay. And finally, somebody took a chance on me. And this time it was different. They actually took me to lunch. They said, I'm a banker, but I want to get to know you. And guess what? I met this banker through my organization. They were not necessarily a member of my organization, but through the connections, through the people I knew, and by way of telling folks, being vulnerable to say, here's my challenges. Even to my own members, that was a little difficult to say, guys, for some reason I'm getting turned down. I didn't want people to know that I'd be financially unable to buy a location, but it turned out I was able to, and somebody took a chance and said, yep, we'll give you a mortgage. And I was able to buy that space. So the space I own is a commercial condo. So I own 2 units within this bigger building, which is really nice because I have another set of community. I have other owners I can lean on, which is a great way and an introduction to owning property. So here I am. I get the keys to the space. So this is April of 2022. Well, at this point, I'm, I was pretty, I was one of those pregnant ladies that was really pregnant, where you 3 months pregnant, they thought I was 6 months pregnant, kind of person. I'm not very tall, so there wasn't much room for the baby to go. So, so folks knew, hey, Whitney's trying to do this. She's, so anyway, I get the keys to the space, and we get in, and we're like, okay, this place needs a full renovation. What are we gonna do? So you walked in, the carpets were gross. It was the carpets were gross. It was green carpets and this really gross mustardy color on the walls, and there were offices. Well, we're supposed to be an event space style, coffee shop style event space. And so I know we're going to have to knock down walls. So here I am, big and pregnant. And I, as a joke, I put on a hat, one of the worker hats. And I had my sledgehammer, and I'm going to start going through the walls to show everybody, here we are, we're breaking ground and we're going to get this going. So we start to do some renovation, we get some of the walls down, and we start hosting our meetings. Despite the mess, despite everything, we have our own space, and we couldn't be more proud of this space, right? This is our new home. And it really felt good because it was laying a foundation of permanent, like, ownership in a space in St. Louis. Here I am, woman business owner, doing the thing. So we get down the road, couple months go by, and now it's time for baby shower time. Okay, this is where the big part of the story comes into play. And to get long story long, to answer your question here, we'll get there, I think, eventually. So I have a baby shower in St. Louis with all of my new community, all my new friends, and what I like to call my family here. But then I am also having a baby shower back in Overland Park, Kansas, to be with my family and my friends from back home. And so this is June, and my husband stays in St. Louis, okay, because it was just it was all females. It wasn't sometimes the baby showers will be the baby shower with both mom and dad, but mine was just me. And then we had, my mom, my grandmother, my cousins, my aunts, all my friends, everybody was there. And it was a beautiful baby shower. It was so much fun because we also did it where there was a pool summertime. So we all got to swim after this. This was a really cool party. But then I started to feel a little like, I'm not feeling so hot. I don't know what's going on. So again, I'm in Overland Park. I am not here. And I get through the next day and something's not right. Well, later that evening in the wee hours, maybe it was like that next almost morning, but like 1 a.m, like it was a Monday. It was Monday. Pretty sure my water breaks. Oh no, I'm definitely sure my water breaks. And I'm staying with my mom and her husband in their apartment at their apartment complex. And I had been on another floor because they had a one you could rent for guests. And so I called my mom and I said, Mom, I need you to get up here. My water just broke. So I, thank goodness, had the thought to call my old doctor from 2017 or whenever I had been living there. And at this time frame, now we're in 2022. And thank goodness they were able to help me and say, you need to go to the hospital and we'll take care of you. So at that point, I'm like, oh, well, my husband needs to get on the road because it's a 4-hour drive. Mm-hmm. So I give my husband a call and I said, hey, honey, best case scenario, you drive here and all is good. Worst case scenario, you don't get on the road and I'm having this baby without you. He's like, okay. So he grabs the dog, gets in the car and heads to Overland Park. So I get to the hospital, and without notice, they say, you're staying here, and we're going to try to keep you pregnant. I was like, oh, okay, like give me some medicine, and you'll send me on my way, and I'll get to go home. No. You're going to stay until your due date. My due date was not until August.
Like 5, 6, 7 weeks.
Like, this is June, and I'm not due until August. So I thought, you mean I'm staying? Well, at the time, it didn't occur to me like the reality or the severity of the situation. So they give me medicine to try to, keep me from having the contractions without going into labor. But Bishop was so ready, her name's Bishop, was so ready to join the party. So she couldn't wait. But I labored for 3 days, so that was insane. And she did come 7.5 weeks early. So at this point in the story, we were told she's going to be in the NICU for a while. So, not knowing how long that would be, because she was born unable to eat on her own, had to be fed through her actual umbilical cord. Oh, wow. They didn't even do the tube yet in her throat or nose. And it was a very scary time. And you're not thinking, oh, I've got to call everybody back home in St. Louis to let them know what's happened, because you're just in the moment, like handling it, you know?
You've got this business club that you're reconstructing, that people are doing meetings, that you're trying to bring all these connections and networks together.
Yeah. Yeah. But that, like, you just don't think of anything else in the moment. And, you know, we're just so grateful because, you know, Bishop, she's so healthy, and she's just the sweetest, most best thing in this whole world. And, you know, I can say that now and look back at, you know, everything that we experienced, and, you know, because it was, at the time, you didn't know what the outcome was going to be. But yeah, we ended up only being in the hospital for a month. Well, it was a little over a month. But here's the deal. We were in Overland Park, and because my mom lived in an apartment, my mom and her husband lived in an apartment, they didn't have extra space for us. So we actually couldn't physically stay in the NICU with my daughter. So we had to find a place to live. So getting back to the power of the ACA Business Club and the power of this community and these relationships that I've built, there was a member of the Overland Park Club who I had known since prior to moving to St. Louis, who'd become friends with my mom. And luck would have it, my mom's husband was helping renovate this apartment that they had owned. And they were looking to lease it out, but it hadn't been leased yet. She gifted my husband and I an apartment to live in.
Wow.
While our daughter was in the NICU. I could just cry.
It brings you back to those deep, deep relationships of caring, nurturing, helping, servicing, growing, that made that connection when you needed it.
Yeah. If I hadn't had that connection, or, you know, in a time of being so scared, you're so vulnerable, you're so
and
unsure. Hormonal. All the things that go into just having a baby nonetheless, and then having a baby born early in the NICU, not knowing when that was going to, you know, when we were going to be coming home, for her to gift us that, you know, having that home to live in. And it turned out to be only a couple miles away from the hospital. It was the biggest blessing we could have asked for. And we're just so grateful, you know, that Bishop she was thriving. She just hit every little milestone, you know, she could hit in the NICU, and the nurses and the doctors were just so good to us. And honestly, think we were a little spoiled because we had all the help too.
Yeah.
But what else was amazing was, in the midst of all of this, my business here didn't stop. The members stepped up. The members who are a part of this community here truly have been such a blessing. There had been folks who'd been a part of this organization from when I started in 2019. People who'd come in a few years after that, or a couple years after that, and they said, "Well, we're just going to step up to the plate and run the show." And I have to give all the credit in the world to those folks who truly had my back because of that community, because of the relationship that we have. And I think it just goes back to really our culture and our what we like to call the ACA DNA, which is servant leadership mindset, you know, being the most helpful person in the room. And when you really, truly have that, business is going to come. And when you're giving towards others, when you're truly, genuinely wanting to be helpful, it makes a huge difference. And it was just so wonderful that I personally got to experience the power of that. And I got to feel like I helped build that. I helped create that atmosphere. I helped to build that community. And it's shown every day. And I get to see, well, now, I mean, we've renovated the space, you know, we're thriving. Our organization is growing. And I have to say it's because of the folks that came together in the time of need. And, you know, we ended up being in the NICU for a month, and I'll never forget that day we got to bring our little baby home. Now, it took us like 8.5 hours to get here with her because, you know, they put the fear of God in you to say, your baby you might have trouble breathing, so you have to get your child out like every hour. And then, of course, you're breastfeeding and you're doing the pumping and you're doing all of the things to get her home. And family. Biggest support was my family. My mom jumped into the truck to help get us home. So we had 2 cars. She jumped into Philip's truck, and Philip's driving my car home, and she packed us up because we had all our things there, you know, because we'd lived there. And kind of a funny story, though. She comes to St. Louis with us, and you know, because she lives in Overland Park with her husband there, and comes here. And she decides, like, she's staying to help. Well, 2 months go by, and she calls up her husband and is like, you know what? I don't think I'm coming home, so maybe you should pack up and get your butt here. So now, Mom and her husband and their dog, they live with us. And I was worried about my brother because I thought, well, where's he going to live? But he's an adult. So funny story. I have a brother the same age as my stepchildren. But he still lives in Overland Park. So he did not move in with us as well. But they now live with us. And my family is everything, you know. And my mom, she's very special. She's such a big part of our life. She watches Bishop now. I didn't know what we would do for childcare. I'm like,
yeah, you weren't 7 or however, you know, even though she was in the hospital for another month, still you're not ready for that.
I wasn't thinking about that, you know, at the time. And also the birth plan went way out the window. I didn't even have a chance to think about, I wasn't ready yet, you know, so I hadn't had a chance to even think about that. But really, what a blessing where everybody just came together and truly were there to support my family and our business family.
So it sounds like both personally and professionally, you saw where that group was transformative. I'm guessing, I could be wrong, that the members of the club here may not have such a personal story. So I'm going to lean on just making assumptions there, which we know what assume is, but making assumptions there that maybe there's another business professional story that one of them, you know, and you don't have to give specifics, whatever it might be, where you just saw the power of that group transform either the individual in the business or the business itself to where, you know, you just saw it happening. I mean, is there
Absolutely.
Any stories like that, or a time where it surprised you? I know some people go through transformation like, you know what, I'm not going to do that anymore. I'm going to do something totally different. Like,
yeah.
Any stories there that stick out to you?
Oh my gosh, we have so many success stories through our business club. And, you know, one of the first ones that was really cool was we had a franchise expert who helps folks who want to be a business owner find the right franchise. And through some of our marketing strategies that we offer, he implemented that into his business and did a recording, like a podcast recording or a video recording of himself, sent out some emails, and through our help and through our support, he ended up getting a really big deal. I mean, he ended up selling an opportunity through that. And I remember this one in particular because he was one of our first members of this location. And for him to celebrate that big win with all of us, it meant so much because it felt like we kind of maybe know what we're doing. We're doing something right. So that was like a really big step for us. Another story would be one of our members came into the organization and he primarily focused on a podcast that he had, and it came from it was a men's faith organization, really focusing on defeating depression, and it was a great focus and had great meaning behind it, but it really wasn't fulfilling the passion or really the business side of what they were looking to accomplish. And now that individual I have seen transform from one complete and total different, I mean, there's still a thread in there, right? But a complete and total different business to where now they're thriving as a communications expert and being able to run a very successful business, not only still potentially doing those podcasts, but doing courses and teaching folks a skill and honing in on their skills. I have several solopreneurs who have come into the organization who now are no longer solopreneurs because they have been able to hire employees for their business. Their businesses are truly scaling. They're truly growing.
And they have multipliers. So building that, it sounds like both from a professional career side of things and your personal progression that it's parallel with this club. As far as, I'm looking back at some of my notes here, you did not have a straight line path. Mm-mm. You tried different things. You were open to learning. You were open to deeper relationships and communities that you didn't come from. And it sounds like that's very similar to what this club is for, of learning, support, service, growth, mm-hmm. and seeing your own success and personal experience exponentially.
Yeah, I can see a direct correlation to the success of this organization and the success of the members in their businesses. It is so amazing that we kind of level up with each other, right? We get that opportunity to support each other in a way where if we're going in that direction, then they're going in that direction. And it's kind of magical.
That is almost, you've done it. Everybody always does this. I don't know if we're on the same wavelength. That almost leads me into where I was going to kind of wrap things up is I love that we're leveling up each other. So whether it's this club or coming into a city or a new place and bringing people around you who are going to help you level up, and you get to in turn give them that favor. Mm-hmm. If you're looking to get in contact with Whitney, and I can say it all here, but you can also say there's different social media platforms, emails, the website. I'll stop talking and let you name it all for the club.
Yeah, absolutely. So you can find us online. So we are acanetwork.org is the website to learn more about the ACA Business Club. And then my email, if you want a direct connection to me, is whitney.toates@acanetwork.org. And then, of course, you can search for us on Facebook, LinkedIn, and Instagram.
All right. Well, thank you we talked at the beginning, this is your first podcast. Mm-hmm. I think you did amazing. You got outside your comfort zone. I hope it wasn't as intimidating. I don't think it could be as the sumo wrestling outfits, but you joined us today and I think opened yourself and very vulnerable in sharing things about your own personal life, but that somebody somewhere will connect with and will learn from not only the club, but how to implement some of these pieces into their career and their journey. So thank you for being willing to step outside and join us on this journey. I know there's a lot of good information for people out there. So thank you very much, Whitney.
Thank you so much for having me.
This concludes another episode of the She Lift Project podcast. To hear more episodes of the show, subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. And to learn more about our mission of helping women reach higher levels of success, visit sheliftproject.com and sign up to receive the latest news, ebooks, videos, and more.